the Imara Girls Festival. It was a fun day, and I hope that you had great time with the girls and are able to understand gender equality. On that note, we ask ourselves, on Friday, it was International Day of Democracy. And as women, in our collectiveness, we come back and converge and ask ourselves, what is this democracy? Does it benefit us? Where did it come from? How can we have our entry points in it? Where is our voice? And it has its pillars. It's rooted deep now in Uganda. And you know, historically, they tell us that it started from Greece. But Americans will tell you that they are the mothers of democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. I am Turyatunga Rebecca Juna, and I have the beautiful women. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. So, hi everyone. My name is Theresa Tumwesigye. I'm a lawyer and communication specialist, and above all, a patriotic, concerned citizen.
Hello, how are you? My name is Omega Aloyo. I'm a lawyer at FIDA Uganda. FIDA Uganda is an organization that uses the law as a way of transforming society and bringing justice to women and marginalized communities. Yeah, I think that should do for introductions.
And FYI, FIDA is 50 years.
And FYI, FIDA is 50 years,
Those
and
are
our
so many
services
things.
are free for
Yes.
all women. In case you have a challenge, you can pass by.
So women, look out for FIDA. It's 50 years.
Yes.
And over to you. What does democracy mean to you as women?
So, for me, democracy is a word I first heard as a child. You hear it around election time, then you read about it, and then it's like, okay, let's find out what this thing is.
Yeah.
So, as I have grown over the years, right now, democracy means people being governed in the way they want.
Yeah.
Yes. In a nutshell, that is it for me.
Mm-hmm.
People choosing the structures that they want, structures of leadership, choosing the leaders that they want, choosing the political processes that they want, having a say in everything, basically. So, getting what you want, as it were, in terms of leadership.
Okay.
Yes.
Omega, what does democracy mean to you as a young woman?
As a young woman,
Uh-huh.
democracy, it centers around power. So it's not only getting what you want,
Yeah.
it's first of all recognizing that there is power, that the world is run by systems and it is run by power. So democracy is how do you bring that power down to me, regardless of my age, regardless of my sex, regardless of any identification of mine. How am I able to make contributions to the system that is in governance?
Yeah.
So even as a young woman, as we are here on this round table, what democracy should mean to us is what you say right now on this show, or what you say to him, to Rashid, to anyone that is around. Does it have consequence to power? So that decentralization of power to make sure that the ordinary Ugandan and the ordinary woman has a say of the systems that are in place and that their voice is heard.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I will ask you, do you think Uganda is a democratic country? She can
Well,
tell
yes,
us.
Tell us that I come in later.
I think before you answer that question of whether Uganda is a democratic country or not, you have to look at the principles of democracy, because there are guidelines to say that this is what a democratic country looks like.
Yes.
And in the beginning, I had you saying, oh, democracy originated from Greece or America. And I just had a flashback of my high school days.
Yeah.
And you remember France, the Bourbons, that
Yeah,
after the Bourbons,
dynasty
so
and
it
Napoleon
flows down.
Bonaparte.
Thank you. So things, they sort of seem to move away from some people's hands.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, you have the king and the queen. Then you have councils. Then you have this. So democracy has to trickle down. And we've seen it in history. So back to the question, is there democracy in Uganda? You have to look at the principles. Or as to whether there is democracy, you have to look at things such as inclusion. And our constitution is very clear on that. You know, it says that we are all equal before the law, regardless of your sex, regardless of that and this. But you look at inclusion, you look at participation, you look at the electoral system that is in place, the electoral commission. So all these principles are what will tell you, it's what you will use to measure. And then Of course, now if we use that system and saying that there are principles, right?
Yes.
It's very easy to tick off the boxes.
Yeah.
And say we have an electoral system.
Yeah.
We have inclusion. We have this article of the Constitution. But then you have to ask yourself the question, these things that are on paper, are they translating into communities? You see?
Yes.
So it's not just about the principles. I would like to call it principles in reality, that you have the beautiful words on paper. You have all these nice provisions of the law, but do they make sense to a one Namo who is selling tomatoes? So,
I know.
yeah. So I think I've thrown back the question to you.
Yes.
This is a lawyer.
Yeah,
She has,
I've thrown back
she
the
has
question
drawn
to
the
you.
chessboard.
I've tried to maybe say these are the principles, right? So could you tell us, best of those principles on paper and principles in reality, do you think there is democracy in Uganda?
That's the thing of hosting lawyers. Now you have to explain yourself.
Lawyers.
But then, for me, I'll go back that we have a multi-party.
Yeah.
And I will draw this ball back to the two of you.
The ball is being thrown.
Yes.
I can take the ball for now.
That is the multi-party system in Uganda working out for women in the democratic setting?
Okay, so if I look at that question, for me,
in terms of participation,
yes,
in terms of inclusion,
in terms of inclusion, if we talk about separation of powers, we talk about checks and balances, rule of law, these are all beautiful things we love to say. Lawyers can easily understand them, and policymakers may easily understand them, because unfortunately we also know that the threshold for joining parliament is Form 6.
Yes.
So that's a deficiency we have that I must point out, which I believe is one of the major hindrances to achieving the type of democracy that we wish to see. So looking at Uganda as it is right now, we have to recognize that Uganda as it is, the state or the boundaries of Uganda, the thing that is Uganda is 60 years old.
Yeah.
So democracy, which started either in Greece or by the Americans or whoever takes credit for it, these are countries that are sometimes thousands of years old or hundreds of years old. So they've had the time to do all the dirty work that requires them to arrive at where they are. This dirty work includes bloodshed. This dirty work includes wiping out certain communities, mass genocides and everything. This is the ugly work that has led to countries to look like what they are right now. Uganda has a brief history, but also a long history, because we don't look at Uganda as at 1962 only.
Yeah.
Because people existed before 1962. And people are still alive. My father himself was born before independence. So clearly, we didn't just spontaneously appear on Independence Day. So there has been a struggle to get Ugandans in power. And then there is a continuous struggle to adopt this democracy, this alien system that was dropped from the West, dropped to us, and they say, okay, these are the systems, now take over, run them how you want. And of course, this is, first of all, in a language that is alien to us.
Yes.
Uganda, we know, has its details. It has its different ethnic groups, it has different cultural beliefs, it has different religious beliefs. All these things come with details on, for example, even just one individual. There is no one individual who is just one thing in Uganda. So all that is going to mean that the aspirations are going to be different, the ideals are going to be different. And if they say democracy means rule of law, what is that actually? What are these laws that you want people to accept, that the conversation just gets long, but now bringing it to become shorter, I can say that Uganda is on the right track. Because democracy is not just a thing that constantly exists. It's not just a thing, it's a process. It's as much a process as it is also a thing that should exist and be there. But it's constantly in motion. Kofi Annan once said, no one is born a good citizen and no nation is born a democracy.
Yeah.
Rather, both are processes that continue to evolve over a lifetime. Even in America itself, we see that they are tested all the time.
Yeah.
Former President Trump is on trial under very many, many counts, and threatening the democracy of America and everything as it is. So everything is constantly tested. And I believe that Uganda, the constitution that we have now, the longest standing constitution, is taking us on the right track. On the right track for women, on the right track for girls, on the right track for youth, on the right track for Ugandans, I believe. If we actually look at it, if we are to look at the constitution as one of the main things to actually make sense to us, I believe we are on the right process for a young country that we are.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I will roll this ball back to you and take you back into time. Those days. Rewind to the Constituent Assembly. I don't know if you were born yet, but for me, by that time, it was called the referendum. The likes of Miriam Matembe, Honorable Winnie Byanyima, Honorable Theresa Tumwesigye, those women, those Betty, or there was some lady called Honorable Betty something from Acholi. They went around telling people, referendum, we are going to get, I think they're making the constitution, those things. And, they made women believe that there was going to be affirmative action. They're going to have a voice. They're going to have the numbers in parliament. They're going to participate in elections. And we get to see it right now that yes, but we have the numbers. But do we have the voice as women? Especially with that rule that we were talking about. We are the ones that decided, okay, our parents by then, because we were the ones now following our parents then, that decided that this is how we are going to be governed as a country. Anti-NRM had come by that time. And later on, we are in 30 or 20 years, 30 I want to believe years later, that was 1994 to 1995. We ask ourselves, is this constitution being respected? Is it working for the women?
Just to maybe roll back to the question that you had asked her, I think it was a very enlightening question because we had just finished, is there a democracy in Uganda? And then you take it a notch further and say, is there a democracy for women in Uganda? Still, the Bible, I would like to refer to the Bible.
Which was the constitution for Roman Empire.
Not for biblical perspective, but just the Bible as an example. It says, the things which are not seen are more important than the things that are seen. Something along those lines. So there are things that are seen and there are things that are not seen. So for women to have all these laws in place and to have all these beautiful things, but to also have social and cultural beliefs in society. There was a report, I think it was by UN Women, on political participation of women in local governments. And it was saying, I read something there that really trickled my mind. It said that marriage as a prerequisite for standing for an election. Do you see how just that one provision, a cultural mindset, that you place yourself up for leadership and you say, I want to be the woman MP for Gulu, and the only thing people are first looking for is, do you have a significant someone? You see, so women participation. And in that report, it also says that more women contested for seats maybe after their husbands passed on. So there are social and cultural strongholds and mindsets that may not make it to paper, but that the ordinary person struggles with. Even being a female politician, how do they refer to them? The Honorable Miriam Matembes. People start calling you cantankerous. You see, you're cantankerous.
As a woman, you're a problem.
You're just trying to disorganize
bad woman.
You see, so you're a bad woman. You're someone who is not containable. You see, but there are those social cultural factors. The issues to do with money. You have to ask yourself, in this Uganda that we live in right now, do you have the economic capacity and the strength to hold an election on your back as a woman? If you woke up tomorrow and you said you wanted to be the youth representative from Civic space, you see, it is possible. On paper, all they will ask you for is your S6 certificate. And on paper, you will have it. But do you have that economic backing? So there are so many things
that
something on top is looking so
nice,
picture perfect, but at the back there is a whole system that is bound to defeat you. And I can give you an example of a campaign that we are running as FIDA Uganda. it's for the protection of property rights of women in cohabiting relationships. So you find that because there's so many women who are illiterate, people don't know the law, you go with your husband and you're trying to buy land, and the man makes you sign as a witness. You see, and the money was yours, you see.
Men,
Fear who?
fear men.
So, but you sign as a witness on land that should be yours.
Yes.
And then tomorrow you're in court and you're trying to get the land. But they'll ask you, are you married to this man? No, you're not. You're not his wife. So what is your stake in that property? And on the face of it, it looks like a campaign that is just advocating for women to have property, you see.
Yeah.
But we have to understand that property has its benefits. When you have a piece of land, you can go to the bank to get a loan. When you get a loan from the bank, you can finance your election. So you see how I would like to believe that everything is, it all plays into each other gently. So not to just deal with the issues that are on top, but also look deeper and say, okay, these systems that are in place, are they really for our advancement? You see, the Constitution says that we are all equal before the law. But a one Nambi and a one Omega who is educated and by luck, you see, because you don't choose which household you are born into.
Yeah.
So an educated person and an illiterate person, if we place them on the same pedestal, do they have the same chance at democracy? Of course, do they have the same chance at life, at education and what? Because even the education system itself, I didn't want to go there. But even that, you see, we have to go into all these questions. It is not enough to say that the cutoff point to join parliament is senior 6. You have to ask yourself, okay, the cutoff point is senior 6. How many children actually make it to senior 6? You see, of these children that make it to senior 6, they're from which areas? Kampala, right? What about those in Kotido? What are the types of schools that are in Kotido? You see, are they UPE schools? If they are UPE schools, how are those UPE schools faring? You see,
how are they going to?
Yeah, how are you performing? You see, so in a sense, you have a democracy that is so it is almost played out.
Yeah.
You see, you go, you are lucky, you go to Trinity College Nabingo, then you go to King's College Budo, and then you make it to Parliament, and then life seems easy for you. It seems like actually a reached stage. Democracy should mean that a person that is coming from Kotido, if they woke up in the morning and they pursued their education, they have the same chance as you. So to not only look at the factors that are in front of you, but to say, okay, we have you and you, go. You see, it is a fair, well-struck match, if I should say. And I'm so sorry, I took you back to her question, but
yes.
I just pondered upon these. Maybe you can ask the one that you had.
No, you've dived me into a different area.
Okay, then.
Because now, when you talk about education, you're talking about civic education. Now it comes back to us as citizens. In this democratic Uganda that we have, as women, we have a stake. Because remember, we were in the constituency assembly that we talked about. Our mothers went and said, we are fighting for you so that you don't go through what we went through. Let us go and participate. My mother was even a polling agent. That was how serious. That is how my mother, for her, she was serious. And she said, for me, I want you not to go through the things I went through. But she also came from a family that liked politics anyway. But we go back to, I saw Honorable Chamadidi say this in Orunyankore, that citizens are not serious. And you've talked about education. Civic action and civic education go hand in hand. For a person to come out of Kampala and hold the government and say, this is what we say per the constitution. The budget process is starting. Where are they? Do they know even the budget process is starting? Do they even know the benefits of the budget process? Or do they know, or they got tired of getting into these things? How then do we as women ensure civic education for civic action? The ball over to you, the two of you.
Okay. So if we're talking about the education point, that's a very valid point. If we are going to talk about democracy, democracy is not just around politics. It's not just around who is in office, because we can't all be in offices of power. Someone has to be the leader and someone has to be the led. So if we can't all say, I want to be the president, you can't all be the president.
One has to be the leader and one has to be represented, not.
One has to be the leader, one has to be the vice president.
If we are going into the details,
Yeah.
the leaders that we have at the root of democracy, if we say that it must consider everybody, it must consider everybody's needs, everybody's, not just political needs, not political representation needs, educational needs, nutritional needs, health needs, everything must cater for the people. And it must build the people in a way that these are the citizens you want to see in a country.
Yeah.
This is the country you want to stand 500 years from now. It's not just going to be of, oh, in Uganda, we know when a regime falls, everything falls with it, and then you have to start afresh. That can't be the thing that we are building. So if we are to talk about education, I believe it goes beyond civic education, as it were. It goes beyond political science. It goes beyond studying social studies. What we study, and of course, I'm saying all this giving credit to Ministry of Education with the new curriculum right now, which is focusing on skills building. This is what Ugandans always complained about. This is what everybody agitated for. They said in school, we just learn theory and nothing is practical. People are now being taught practical things. It comes with its pressures, but they are giving a solution to a problem. Now, the issue, of course, is going to remain. These things that we are talking about, the Napoleon Bonaparte's, actually, I must confess on national TV right now that I never studied history in A-level because I looked at it as useless. Sorry to say. We are not studying Ugandan history. What is the point? If I'm studying geography, Canadian prairies, what's the point of that?
Valley.
Rhinelands, so what? Let's study Uganda, let's study our geography, let's study our soil structures, let us study our wetlands, let's study what we have. This is how we can actually build a country. This is how Ugandans can say we are actually committed to climate justice, which means people are not in the wetland. If they tell you get out of the wetland, you get out of the wetland because you studied these things, at least at basic level, SST, you know the purpose of a wetland, you know the point, you know you're not supposed to live there. So it doesn't become a thing of fighting, no, let us develop, because you are focusing on Rhinelands and prairies, you didn't study your own Lubiji wetland area. You didn't study Mabera Forest.
That's why you're burning it down.
Exactly. And let me tell you, the countries that we love and admire so much of, oh, look at the infrastructure of France, look at the infrastructure of Italy, oh, the bridges of France, oh, have you seen St. Petersburg? Oh my God, in Russia, it's so beautiful. They have courses at master's level in Russia, for example, bridge building, railway construction. We don't have these courses here. We study things that are just general structural engineering. So what? That's why we'll keep complaining Ugandans are not the ones building the roads, they're not the ones building the bridges. Why? Because they're not taught these things. If we go down to the basics, then we can say the budget must provide for this bridge here.
Okay. Thank you so much. Let's go for a short commercial break and we'll be back.
The Citizens Chatroom happens every Friday at 2 p.m. on Civic Space TV Online on Facebook and YouTube. We invite you to be part of this conversation. Civic Space TV, freedom always.
Welcome back from the break, and we are joined by Prisca. The conversation is getting a little bit hot for young women to be able to monitor our government if it's democratic. Welcome to the show, Prisca.
Thank you so much for hosting me.
How is the weather treating you?
Oh my God, it was very cold.
Is
but
Uganda a democratic country?
I don't think so. It's just a narrative.
Why do you say so?
I think Uganda is it's just a democratic country in words or in speech and probably on paper. But for me, the system, how our systems function and how there's a lot of mismatch in policies and all that, for me, it's not, I don't think it plays out how it should. So it's a conversation that we have to hold regardless,
Before, while you were there outside, still hearing the conversation, we talked about the Constituency Assembly and the referendum of what we wanted in the Constitution as women and how we would have the numbers and all that. And for me, I want us to base on that because it happened between 1994 and let's say 1995 there when we were still, young, but we know it shaped. We're not that old, I think.
I think we are fairly young.
we are young people.
We were not yet
with
born.
so
We were not
solid
yet
bucket.
born.
Yeah.
So, please, I'm a constituency assembly child. I can't lie about not being born by that
Oh,
time.
God.
So we are saying, is there a separation of powers? Because we had that. Our parents, our grandmothers went there, led by those Honorable Miriam Matembe, Honorable Winnie Yanyuma, Betoraro Chan, Honorable Tizra Jamwa, to be able for us to now have the numbers, have the voice. But is it working out for us? Is there a separation of power? Do you get to see it as a woman?
I think for me, you see, this is how they even bring the conversation of let's have women representatives in the picture. But how influential are they in decision making? How are their voices being effective
Yes.
when they speak? For me, that's the conversation and you see, we have been blindfolded to think that the system is playing out for you, just like it has always been. But I want to believe that there's a very huge separation of power, and it has been masqueraded by so many incentives that I've put in place, like, oh, let's have women representatives, like we're having women MPs from every district, and for me, they don't have a much big of a say. Like the other voice is not that effective and influential in decision making. If we go back to numbers, what percentage of real MPs are women in Parliament right now? Whereby they have the bigger they have the bigger influence in making decisions, but also when we go back to constituencies, let's go back to the level where maybe leadership cannot be separated, or democracy over district or a municipal, where we have, let's say, a woman MP and a real MP, and then maybe LC5s and all these local council leaders, which I also know are populated by men, by the way. If research is done, you will see that still at that level, women MPs who are only women MPs do not have a much bigger voice to influence, but also to advocate for like the us back here. So for me, there is a very huge separation, and our government, which I mean, they've done pretty much a lot in that time until now. We appreciate that, but I really think at the level that we are at now, there should have been a very huge transformation in how that bridge of separation has been covered, and it has not happened. So that's why right now very many young women and even women in leadership, because of the system that has been built for like a long time, they're still marginalized, and when you sit in a place where women leaders are going to speak about how the system has marginalized them and has made them shrink in their element, you're going to hear so many things that will even cause you, like even right now I'm speaking, I'm getting goosebumps because it's so bad. It's extremely bad, Becky, I'm telling you.
It's toxic.
And very toxic. So as we dive into the conversation, we are going to share some of the things and how the system has made women shrink a lot. And for me, it really, really doesn't, like, I feel so bad for us. Yeah.
And so, sorry, just a little addition to what Prisca was saying. Separation of powers, maybe just from a different angle.
Yeah.
I don't think separation of powers is the independence of each arm of government and how that plays out later on into what? Democracy. So if you say you have the executive, which is the presidential arm of it all, then you have the legislature, which is parliament. Then you have the judiciary, who are the judges, because that's also a principle of democracy. So these different arms of government, which are three, how separated are they? Because if they are separated, and we say the executive does this and this and this, and the executive should not interfere into parliament, you see? Because they all have different roles. The judiciary is to serve justice to the people, you see? Can you have justice when you have an interference from the head of state? So you see how it all plays out. Then can you have justice when you have interference from the executive into parliament? Because now parliament is the one which is going to wake up tomorrow and say, Prisca, Omega, no miniskirts, you see? They say it and they pass it, and it is a law and you must abide. So just to maybe draw
But how
back the
does it play
conversation on
out?
to separation of powers,
Yeah.
to say that we have the different arms of government, yes, they're in operation, but are they independent? Are they doing
They are
things
not.
in the way that they should be doing? Because the one that is really sensitive, all of them are extremely sensitive, but the judiciary,
Yeah.
you know, to have a man steal your car and you go
Yeah.
to the police and you report and you're confident that you'll get justice, but you may not actually get justice because there is a bit of interference.
Yeah.
If you rub the wrong person off,
They're
so,
using that.
just to take us back to that conversation on separation of powers, and to have the question out there of how independent
Are they?
are these bodies. I could give an example if you let me.
Oh, please do.
The judiciary is appointed by the Judicial Service Commission, right? The Judicial Service Commission comes up and says, these and these judges qualify. Of course, you go through the test. You have to meet certain requirements. But you have to ask yourself now, who appoints members of the Judicial Service Commission? So maybe that is our homework, to find out who appoints members of the Judicial Service Commission. So it is not, you see, it is not implied that your judges are chosen for you.
Exactly.
But the appointer of your judges is also appointed by what? Someone. So the agenda that your judges that have been appointed are going to front forward, the justice that you will get has to be in line with the person who put those judges on the what? On the seat. So still, you go back into the conversation. Things are looking pretty on paper, but are they really pretty in, you see? Yeah, so separation of powers, just to add on what Prisca had said.
So by the law, just to maybe to get clarity in that matter, who of course we want to know who then, because I think not having the knowledge of the law is also another aspect, but who then has to choose the judicial commission?
The Judicial Service Commission. The Judicial Service Commission is a body, like I said, that chooses. Not chooses, actually, the judges are there. They are qualified, and I have a lot of respect for them. Because they have, you see, it selects and says, okay, a judge of this and this court has to have this, you see. But then, as we have this conversation as young women, we have to front things, because out of conversations like this must come reform. You see, you have to advocate for certain things. You have to wake up in the morning and say, can we have an independent Judicial Service Commission that is composed of so and so and so and so, that is composed from a women's what? It has a women's representative. It has a person from the disability, you know, a person that has a disability. So for us not to take things as they are given to you, but to actually question. And when you question things, then you can actually give a recommendation. Because you've asked me the question, I don't have the answer, because the answer is not clearly written out in the law. The law is already as it is. But then if the law is already as it is, does that mean we have to go by it? Or do we have to sit back and come into ourselves and say, okay, this and this is what's happening? Could there be a need for an independent Judicial Service Commission? If there is a need, yes, how do we, what should it look like? And maybe just for us, we can even do a sample space right now. If you had a person choosing judges or a body choosing judges, what would that look like for you?
Yeah.
For me, I feel like let's give an example that, let's say in this aspect, it would be perhaps our community, let's say maybe a community structure that has representation from everybody, from our different groups of people, persons with disabilities, women, men, and young people and all that. It would mean that we have representation from everyone in the community. So that would mean that, let's say, from all over the country, young people, women, persons with disability have been able to make a decision to vote for maybe persons that have been nominated, or they have an outstanding character and they have a certain level of integrity that holds the will of the people at interest. So that would mean that we have everything played out in the interest of the umuntu wa wansi. So really, I feel like that would
Yes, please do.
So to go back to a bit of some of the things you've been mentioning, my perspective on these matters is, I could say, decidedly different from you. In some of some of the things you said I agree with. Some of them I feel like maybe it's not as bad as we're making it seem.
Okay.
Because I could say for a fact that if we look at Uganda's political history, of course you cannot, politics and democracy are married and they will never divorce. So if we look at the days of the Legislative Council, how many women were there? There was a lady that was called, look at research, Madame Florence Lubega, Honorable. Because you can just name names from those days of Legislative Council. But if you go down to the National Resistance Councils and you look at how many women were there, the numbers just keep increasing. Constituent Assembly, numbers just keep increasing. How many women are in Parliament right now? Parliament, which is formerly Legislative Council. Those days you could name one person. Now, I can tell you that 33% of parliamentary seats are held by women, and 46% of local government seats are held by women.
Wasn't that after affirmative action?
Yes. So I'm talking as Uganda right now.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to say it's not as bad. It's not that women have no voice at all. I don't want to agree that the women representatives we have are just figureheads in offices doing nothing. I don't believe that women are that oppressed that we don't decide anything. I'll call your mind to the Uganda Women's, the UOPA, Uganda Women's Parliamentary Association. They have worked together collaboratively. Women from opposition, women from NRM, they've collaborated on laws about marriage and divorce, FGM,
Yeah.
maternal health rights. They've collaborated on everything, on so many things. FIDA has been a constant contributor on marriage and divorce laws, policies, everything, law on cohabitation. Those are wins of women.
Yeah.
So I don't want to believe that these seats that are reserved for women are not doing anything. Women are just there, they are oppressed, they have no voice. The Speaker of Parliament is a lady. People call her an iron lady, others abuse her. It's because she's strong.
And
Yeah.
I agree with
For
you.
one reason or another.
And I just, sorry
So-
to cut you off just for 1 minute. Oh, I'm sorry. Please go on.
Yes, thank you. So I want us to acknowledge the steady increase of women in Parliament and in not just Parliament, at all levels
Of leadership.
even local councils. There are women leaders there. Ugandans, we like to say this is what we don't have. We have representatives of disabled people. We have now senior citizens represented. And it's like, okay, fine. Now, that is all well and good. It works when it works. It doesn't work when it doesn't work. And that's a fact of life. And the reality is that some things don't work because of the people in certain offices. So if we are to say that things are not working for one reason or another, it's not just MPs who are supposed to push things, for example, at local level. There are people in these offices, I say that every time I'm here, true accountability starts with us. People who are in these offices are tasked to do specific things. The laws are very clear. Local Government Act is clear. People in local governments know what they're supposed to do. Judicial Service Commission, Equal Opportunities Commission, these things are provided for in the Constitution. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do. Police is governed by laws. UPDF is governed by laws. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do. They're given these positions and they say that they will do what they're supposed to do, but they don't. And then the problem becomes, Ugandans. But who is the Ugandans? We are the Ugandans. We have to believe in the systems. We have to believe in the offices that we hold, because these offices are supposed to advance the will of the people. These are the people who are waking up to dig every day, waking up to go to offices every day, driving Benzes or walking on foot, or people who have to use wheelchairs, people who are blind. It should work for everybody. That's the whole point of democracy. But then how does that come in? I disagree fundamentally on the point of having people, the masses, appoint who is going to sit on the bench, because there are certain things that are technical and are understood by specific people. So the whole point, I believe, of democracy is this: it has to thrive on representation, because like I said, we can't all be in these positions of power. So you have to align yourself with a leader or a political party or whichever thing you believe aligns with your values. If you believe it doesn't align with your values, find the one that does, vote for that one, believe in it, push it, and have faith in it. I think the biggest issue is that we don't have faith in the things that we choose. People will say, elections don't work in Uganda, and then when an election cycle comes up, they say, oh, come and vote for me. You know, we are doing this, let's remove the other person.
I
But
think-
you, as you, are saying elections don't work. But then elections
elections
are
work
where
in Uganda?
but
Yeah.
it's us to believe in them. Elections are where you get to decide who represents you.
And my
That's
question
when
would
you
be,
get to decide. Because
I want
you
to
see
ask
the
one
person-
my
question.
question would be one.
Because
I'm
you
so
see
sorry
the
to
person.
overrule.
Ladies, ladies.
You see the
I want to
person
ask
in your
one question.
community.
Do you
You're
think
not
Uganda
voting
is
as a stranger.
democratic? Do you think Uganda is
And
democratic?
just to add to her question, do you think it could be better? Could you think
Everything
things
could
could
always
be
be
better?
better.
No,
That
I
is my
think
only question.
Like I
think
said,
an
Uganda is
answer-
a 60-year-old democracy.
And I'm
we
sorry,
look
is
you
it
at
guys
that
democratic?
history.
I think, is it democratic? I just want you to maybe give a certain
It
perspective.
is okay
to
to
that.
acknowledge what is right and what is working.
Yeah.
To say we have
And
all
then
these
say we
female
improve
seats. You
here.
see,
Let me-
but
can I give you-
nobody acknowledge.
Can I give you a narrative or
Yes.
a conversation that was held by women?
refusing.
Yeah,
I'm
we
not
know.
refusing because as somebody, I can give you a bit of personal background.
Yeah.
I'm from a family of politicians, both ruling party or old governments or opposition as it is called. So you get to see different beliefs, you get to listen to different people, you see the good, the bad, and the ugly of politics.
Yeah.
But I can tell you at the end of the day, the only way we are going to have a true democracy, something that actually works. The ideal will never happen, that I can say. But the only way to achieve anything close to a democracy whereby we actually say persons with disabilities are genuinely accepted in Uganda, you know? It's not just about politics. It's about our homes. How are children with disabilities treated by their own parents? How are they treated in schools? How are they treated in communities? So you cannot expect that in parliament they're going to consider persons with disabilities when own communities are hiding them.
All
get
right.
it?
Thank you
Yes.
so much, ladies.
The
And I've
controversy.
gotten heated and I let you guys
Okay.
Those are the
We
interesting
set the
words.
fire and then you
Yeah.
watch from a distance. and you know, and that's the beautiful thing about dialogue and shaping conversations, because
Yeah.
it reminds us of where we need to improve, where we are doing good. We say credit to government, we are doing good.
Yeah.
And remembering that government is me, you, the politician, the president, we are all in that together.
Yeah.
And where we are doing bad, we say, okay, we need to
Let's
improve here,
look in
we
our
need to improve
hearts.
here. And I'm going to come back to you as women, because now we have to enhance participation.
Yeah.
The budget process has started. People, ask, put your things there in that, and they're making work plans. Don't come and ask politicians at the end of that day, did you build that for us a road? The politician is not meant to build for you a road. They are only meant to monitor and ensure there is allocation of funds.
Yeah.
So we need to tell the citizens also to know their roles.
Yeah.
These guys are there asking the politician to give them a road. Is that the role of a member of a party?
An assumed role these days.
Buy for us an ambulance. That is not their role.
It's a lot.
Yes.
School fees, barriers, big money. Those
Yes.
things.
So how do we therefore ensure that citizens are civic aware? There is civic education, there is participation. Or have they given up on the system? Me, I've not yet given up.
Don't
We
give
are all
up.
not giving
Don't
up on
give
the
up.
I still
on the
trusting.
country.
Don't
I
give
just
up.
have some hope.
Don't
But
give
how do we, as the young women, implore our grandmothers, even just as simple as a community dialogue, going to the LC chairperson and reminding them, by the way, my friend, you have been taking our land. If it's take him to police, take him to police. How do we ensure that? Because we have that role, and if we act, the presidents will act. Me, I told you last time, they blamed us for keeping the president in power. That means that as women, we have power.
Yeah, they keep it even until now. They
Yes,
keep
they
blaming
keep
us.
blaming us.
Yeah.
So now let's bring back the power to the ground and say, how do we ensure that citizens are participating, know their roles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could I go first?
It's okay.
So how do we make sure that citizens are participating? first of all, no one is an island. We all thrive together. We could come and say, okay, the government has done this wrongly, but you, at some point, you will need that same government. So I want to think it's a multifaceted sort of question for the government. Can you make sure the education system is working? Can you make sure that there is an element of civic education? You see, because the government and parliament makes these laws. The only reason we studied sexual, you remember those clubs we used to have in school, where you would go and they would tell you about menstruation, and
Interact.
those clubs, there was a
Interact is for
club in
Kampala.
primary.
Interact is for Rotary, I think.
Yeah, it's called
Presidential
PRC.
initiative on
Yeah.
strategy,
That club was
but
so...
that's looking back now, when I remember PRC, of course you're in P1, you think PRC, presidential. But PRC is actually an initiative of the government.
Wow.
But see how it reached the primary and nursery girl to know that unsafe sex leads to diseases.
Say no to bad touches.
But say no to bad touches. Don't walk at night. You see. So the government has a role. And I agree with you heavily that as citizens, we have our role too, but we must not overlook the role that the government has. The reason you give them power is so that they can govern according to your will. You know, the Constitution, I think Article 1 says power belongs to the people and they shall exercise their sovereignty in accordance with the Constitution. So me, you, and everyone, we are the ones that are actually sovereign. But we are sovereign through a system. You see, we are sovereign through voting. We are sovereign through, you see, how do you vote? You're 18. That is where citizen participation comes in. Your role, what is your role? You vote, but what is the government's role? In civil spaces, what is your role? Organizations such as FIDA Uganda, you know, NGOs that are in the, what is your role? What are you doing in your own separate capacity?
Shrinking civic
space. That is a conversation for another day. But
just democracy.
What is your role?
If I talk.
If you start to talk,
I will say I'm a talker.
What is the role of the civics, the civil society space? If you say you're getting funding from donors, are you doing what you're supposed to do? As a Ugandan, are you doing what you're supposed to do?
Is the environment favoring you to do what you're supposed to do?
To do what you're supposed to do. Again, it's your duty to vote. You see, as a Ugandan, it's your duty to vote. It's actually written in law that if you're above 18 years old, you should go and vote. So when you do not vote as a woman, you're only doing a disservice to yourself. Because whoever will choose is what will... It plays out in the long run. It is not enough to say that we are not... They gave us sugar in the elections and they forgot about us. Simba Wakatao. Like, put your stake. You see, listen to all your candidates and say that she's campaigning. What exactly are they saying? You see.
And here is the thing. I was Simba Wakatao. I first drive this ball this side.
Bring it here.
Here, there. These politicians, when we are in campaigns, you are there as women. And you know how they lie to us? Oh, women, why do they easily lie to us? And we go there.
That's homework.
That's homework. We need to ask ourselves why it's easy to lie to us. And we believe in them. Then when we reach, and remember, you've cast your vote and say, this is my person.
This is my
and
passport.
Society holds us to a very high degree of morality. And then you Simba Wakati and put your vote there inside. The person changes later. The system, the political system, honestly, is very, I think, toxic. You look at the politician and they're not the person you are in campaigns with.
It's a stranger.
A totally different person you cannot understand. And then when you go back to the community and say, we can't vote for another person, people will be like, but what's wrong with this woman? You brought for us last time the other person, now you're coming with this person. So this thing you're saying that voting is giving us power, which I want to say it does. But the systems within which the politicians or the leaders that we send into politics that are existent, do they still serve the voters' needs?
Unfortunately.
Prisca.
Okay,
let her.
I wanted to ask, first of all, the conversation shifting from civic education is very big. Why? What are the people's expectations while voting? You get? There's a very big problem where, by the way, we have so many leaders in parliament, and I'm sorry to say this on TV, but we have so many leaders in parliament who do not serve the needs of their people because they also maybe don't know what are people's expectations.
Or they
where
know,
they get.
but the system fails them.
Or they are focused on keeping themselves in power.
Let me give you guys an example.
Yes.
We have seen in so many scenarios where women have been blamed for the leadership that we have because they are the biggest voters that we have. But how you guys were talking about how we are lied. There are people who sincerely vote, I kid you not, because they have been given a bar of soap or 1 kg of sugar. But when honestly the person that they are entrusting with this, because I kid you not, I don't think there are so many districts in this country that, let's say we have 6 competitors, and of those 6 we do not have someone that serves the needs of, like, they have the needs of the people at heart. Very, like, they are so much interested in advocating for that omuntu wansi, the people that they are taking them in power. Those leaders are there. But have we also seen that in the long run there are so many people that are very much capable of challenging? You've hosted so many brilliant women here on this show, Becky, and you know that some of them, if they are to go out there and represent their constituencies or municipal, could highly represent the needs of everyone, right? Nenga, they will say, me democracy of this country, no, like, or even if they try and go out there, maybe they do not have the capacity to bribe, because the bribing happens. Women do that. So people have different expectations in leaders. So wabango mwade kasukali, oyoyo wange, nengo lustabutake na kufako. Yage na kugamba, ono mukazi we mwasukali, ogujja kage na kolachi, kumpa akaluwe mbanga nzeo kone mlaba mulundi gumu, in 5 years, they will come and vote for me. Or if I visit my local council place maybe in 5 years 1 time, and maybe bring them something, or even if back, these ambulances and all, these are all only public stands for people to keep their positions, to know that, I have secured my place. I have secured my image in the population. So let's go back behind. What do we need to do? Or is it civic space or government? I have seen, I think in the past, by the way, it's going to be my first time voting in the next elections. I was young in the previous elections. So
welcome to the age of voters.
I remember, there's a program that the Electoral Commission ran. I want to get your ideas. I don't know whether you guys are lawyers. I want to get your ideas on the law regarding on what's the mandate of the Electoral Commission, right? But I want to give you guys an example of what I saw happen. Is it 2019? There was a program that the Electoral Commission was running. They were doing civic education in universities.
I think with
at that time,
I think it had Sedu, I think.
Yeah, I think so. So at that time I was at university. These guys came to us and they were teaching us on your role as a young person in ensuring that democracy plays out in your favor, to ensure that your needs and things that are going to, like, how they play out favor everyone. And we were given that background, that kind of a foundation. Can this happen all over the country? Yes. Can people know?
It's actually being done.
Yeah, if it's being done, I'm happy to hear that. So for me,
give us
Electoral Commission
exactly
has been holding consultative across the country.
Consultative
meetings.
But they
people
usually hold
just
publics.
Listening to people. They're all public meetings happening in public in the districts. They announce and say we are going to be here. So the people just come and talk to the commissioners, and it's happening.
Me also. I was driving. That is now government, right? I was driving to Civic Space. Do you know I will give an example of FIDA. FIDA has a very big influence in women's spaces, even at the grassroots level. They would highly. Let's talk about now conversations that are being held here. Can we have conversations where, I mean, even if we have 1,000 or how many people viewing or watching this show, are they going to come out and say, if my vote is going to go in that box, it's going in for the person that is going to represent me. I need to have guys, democracy has been so bad that to the extent that even in universities, elections are people are voting because omuntu ampade.
Yes.
It's very
Because of
weird.
a brain.
So for me, it's the gap in civic education that has made women look like they are bad. They are voting for sugar and soap, and yet we are supposed to vote for the leader that is going. The leader that is going to challenge what is happening in parliament.
Thank you so much,
To represent my whatever.
Hold on, and this is, we are almost running out of time, and I'm going to throw another question onto you, ladies.
Yeah.
Is poverty
Exactly.
and the monetization of
of
politics?
Yeah.
Because she brought it out,
Yes.
and I know you want to say something.
It
so
is
bad.
exactly where I'm headed.
and I'm going to throw that ball to you and say, what can we do better? Because people are poor.
People are poor.
You are telling that woman not to take that sugar, but she has not drunk sugar in 5 years. So I'll throw that to you, and I will have a different question for you as we.
Why don't you want to ask me about sugar?
It's funny. I mean, you can give that comment.
As Prisca was talking, it really came to me as you're saying, oh, people are voting because of sugar and because of. You have to ask yourself, how bad is it? You see, how bad is it?
Yeah.
It is not about that the politician has the soap and the sugar to give. It is, how bad is it for the recipient to exchange?
I mean, I
You
can
see, their
exchange and not
sovereignty, you see,
vote.
Yes.
How hungry are you as a woman who has children at home that you know what? Your vote costs what? A kilogram of sugar. So as we ask the questions from this side, they also have to come from this side, because voting and elections are by adult suffrage. You have to be 18 years and above of sound mind. You see, so a person who is competent to vote, where are they voting in this manner? We have to ask ourselves. And we know that women are a group that has faced oppression for a while. You see, as a woman, how dire is the situation that you are voting in such a manner? Because the politician and the person that wants to be voted will always have the money. So could we shift from coming from this angle and instead now look at the people? And it's something at FIDA Uganda that we are strongly invested in, the economic empowerment of women. Because when people are economically empowered, they can make choices. You see,
Better decisions.
if a person is economically empowered and you say A, they'll say, okay, A, why? You see, because they know there is sugar at home, there is bread at home, and you spoke about skillings and things like that. So as we look at civic education, it is good, it is perfect, and it is extremely, because with knowledge comes power. Information is power, like the old saying goes. You have the information.
You take the sugar and you vote another person.
You have the information, but are your hands tied in another way? You have information, but you don't have economic liberation. So as women, and I know there is UOPA, I know there are so many economic empowerment schemes that are currently in place. The parish model. You've heard of the parish model. It is coming, it is going to help like this and like this and this. But how do we make sure that even that parish model, it is going to target that one, you know how you play pool and you hit the ball? So how do you make sure that things are going where they're supposed to go? That it is not just about the government saying we have 3 billion shillings to dispense. How is that 3 billion being dispensed? Because there are side effects of its improper what? Dispensation. So while you were talking, something that came to me and I thought to myself, how bad is it? And the need for economic liberation. People have to be economically liberated. Because when you are not, you make choices, but your choices are based off another person.
In our
legal aid clinic, we have so many women that are coming. They come to FIDA Uganda for help, and they're saying, oh, I've been beaten up, this and this has happened. And then in some situations, sadly, you find the person has gone back to the perpetrator. And when you do a bit of further investigation, you find out this woman does not have a job. You see, she has children to raise. So the person who is beating her
is the one who can
is the one who, you see, and he is confident within himself.
That you will come
back. You see, you need the school fees, you need the money, you need the money for hair, you see. So in the women's rights movement, and as young women ourselves, to look to it and encourage young women to economically liberate themselves, to hold government accountable. Because we don't have these women MPs in parliament for nothing. Hold them accountable. Say, what economic schemes do you have for us? to better ourselves.
And Omega, I will come from, and thank you for that beautiful submission, and come to you, because now you've looked at the people, but then we talked about poverty and politics, monetarization of politics. A lot of women, politicians, will get their money put in the elections, because we have these poor, voters that we have to have. But even moving around the village to campaign, even if you sit on a border, that's curfew. You have to eat. There has to be a budget for a woman to be in politics. So now we are looking at our leaders. How then do we empower our women politicians to have money of their own? Because when they enter these spaces, local councils, parliament, it's not easy to bribe such a woman. It's not easy to bring down such a woman that knows that she has her own money. But sometimes you find even people are trying to bring these businesses and cripple their businesses. How best do we ensure that the economic situation of our women leaders is taken care of?
Okay. I believe that the real issue is money in politics, money in elections, because that money prices out people who can't afford it, and not just women. But of course, most of these things, or all these things, disproportionately affect women. 1 out of 5, only actually 1 out of 5 women, less than a fifth of women who apply for a loan to finance an election get it. And yet 4 out of 5 men can get that loan to finance their elections. But the real issue, I believe, is that the money in politics is a problem. The money in politics is a problem, which means that now we have to look at having women in parliament who can afford it, which means they may not be the best people to represent us. I believe that choosing leaders should be on choosing people that you know, people that align with your values, as I said earlier. People you know are going to represent what you actually want. Not necessarily the one who is giving you the money, not necessarily the one who is doing this for you. But of course, that's in an ideal world. Unfortunately, the reality is that democracy, as we see it now, found Uganda already with its details, and then Uganda under capitalism right now is not going to work for everybody. So there are going to be people who are starving to death, while other people have more than enough money to last them 10 generations, right? So that is the inequality we deal with. But that doesn't mean that just because we are poor, we are doomed to exchanging votes for a matchstick. The issue is not just in women not affording to run. The issue is not just in money in politics. The issue is in education. The issue is in the system of capitalism. I am not afraid to say that, because then you don't choose one who is good for you. Because then a woman who is battered will go back to the husband. Because the system requires money. You're not going to survive without money. You're not going to get a good leader without money. You're not going to get a person who is good for you just because they can't afford the election. Because you're kept in poverty. Because of what? For example, government wealth creation schemes, which are sabotaged by who? Ugandans ourselves. Like I said, everything just comes down to us. It comes down to us to choose the Uganda that we want, but to also hopefully have an education system that molds Ugandans from childhood to understanding, appreciating their country and appreciating what is good for their country, and then they understand the weight of a vote. If you understand the weight of a vote, to providing you a bridge, to providing you the roads that you need for your child to go to school, you're not going to exchange a matchstick.
Thank you so much. And I will, as we tend to end just in 2 minutes.
The conversation is so beautiful.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
amazing.
In 2 minutes, I'll roll this ball back to you, to the two of you, and you give me your parting shots also of how best can we ensure that our women leaders, from LC to even parliamentary level, to women in government, to women in even the marketplaces, those women leaders are able to be economically empowered so that we can have sustainability in politics.
You can start.
The leaders, not
How
the citizens.
do we enable our women leaders have sustainability in politics? My first answer would be my economic sustainability. My first answer would be one, to be patriotic, to love your country, to love your women. Leadership is It's an opportunity, but at the same time, it is a burden. When you're placed in a position of leadership, you can imagine in parliament, if we have 500 representatives, how many people are we in this country? We are by the millions, right?
Yes.
How many?
About 49.
About
45
49 million
49.
people. But how many people are seated in the parliament? 500. So just that one room is housing the entire country. When a member of parliament speaks, they're not speaking by themselves. When you're speaking as an MP from Gulu, you're speaking for the whole region, you see. So to have our MPs come back into the responsibility of it all and stop viewing it as a money-making scheme. You know, you see clips around, I saw one. I'm definitely not here to suffer. I'm here to enjoy life. You've seen clips like that.
Yeah.
So leadership becomes painted as a, it's
Eating
a quick,
schemes,
yes,
an eating
it's a quick
program.
scheme out of poverty. But that is not what leadership is. Leadership has a burden. You have responsibility. So for my first response to that would be patriotism, understanding what leadership truly is. As we talk about civic education for children in school and for the rest of the population, there needs to be civic education for our leaders. In the civic space, the civil society space, as NGOs, I saw Forward was doing it. Even FIDA Uganda is extremely keen on it, to say that, okay, we have these women leaders, how do we empower them? When they're already there, how do we empower them before they get there? What do you need to know before you vie? You see, do you understand what is truly at stake? So for me, that would be it, because with sustainability, you have to look for something that is going to last. And nothing lasts like a mindset. Your mind will forever be with you. Money will come and go, and you've seen it in previous. You've seen people like the Honorable Rebecca Kadaga. How many years has she been in power? But the mindset, the value, you see, to say that this is what I stand for, this is who I represent. And recently she gave an example and said that she was blocking the tax on diapers and pads. And she said, I've been in parliament for all these years and I've been blocking the tax on diapers and pads, because essentially you're taxing women and who? And children. You see, how do you ask a child to pay tax on Pampers? Who is going to pay? You see, you're taxing the mother.
And you're also taxing her
for pads, you see. So you're taxing the woman for existing. Is menstruation a crime? It is not.
And yet you have free condoms.
You see that sense of, for a person to think and say, as long as I am here, this issue affects me and it affects so many women. It is not going to pass. But what happened when she walked out of parliament? The same thing has showed its head again. You see, so civic education, viewing leadership as responsibility, even as society, by the way. It is, I liked from your submission that you place the burden on individuals, because the world is a connection of synergies. You give what you get. If you expect a bar of soap, that is what you get. But imagine if we lived in a society where if you came and you said, I want to be the MP for Karamoja, people say, and then what would you do for us? You see, you would, even you as a person that is vying, you would have to, these people are quite serious. You would go within your notes and scramble something and say, so place the leadership, place the burden on your leaders and say, what are you doing for us? We are going into election season, by the way.
Oh, yes,
we are
the
just at the,
yeah, we started already.
We are just at the, if we are not already in election season.
We are ready.
So for all the young people, and maybe something in our parting shots, Uganda is a young population. I think you can even see from this table here. We are young. The majority of the people are young. So young people, just to look into the camera and say that young people, you form a very huge part of this conversation and of this population. And if young people could truly see the power that they have, to make that mark of 18 and to know I have the chance to change things in one way or the other. If I can't change them here, let me change them in my local council election. If I can't change them in my local council election, let me change them at MP level. So you cannot miss to vote this time. I saw you say that.
I might as well come. So
Prisca, within 1-2 seconds, your parting shot.
I think that the issue of sustainability, she talks about it entirely very well. For me, I think something that I really wanted to talk about on this show was the fact that, well, we need to know that young people in this country are actually very active in leadership. But there's only one problem, and I've seen this, and it's something that we have not talked about, but I see it becoming a very big problem. Young people are very greedy, like they're very angry for power.
Thank you.
Oh my God. like it's so sad. But for me, my call to young people is that, like she said, leadership is a responsibility. And until you accept that it's not a money-making scheme, this is how, whether young or old or everyone is viewing it. The moment they make up their mind that, oh, I can speak some English, I can face a group of 1,000 people and talk to them and probably create up something to tell them that, I will represent, and they give me their votes. You see, that's the mindset that we have. So can we cultivate that patriotic mindset that she was talking about and understand 1 minute and less than 1 minute, and understand that we have a very huge part. If you're given that platform, it's not about money, guys. We can make money from so many things out there. So let's leave that element of I have been poor for there's a lady who said, I've been broke for 19 years. I'm going to eat my money and do all those things. Let's leave that mindset. Let's know that when you've been given a place on the leadership table, you've been given a responsibility to. Thank you so much, and thank you for hosting me, Becky. And yeah, let's vote.
Okay.
So yeah,
your parting shots. 1 second.
My parting shot to us Ugandans is that democracy is not just about having these positions in power. They are calling you honorable. Now you're a big person, you're important. No. Leadership is not just in politics. Leadership is at every level. In a home, as an elder sibling, as a child, as a parent, as a person who has a job. Because leadership, is just like a job. You put in your documents, you give your manifesto to the people. If they like it, they give you the vote. Just as you put in your CV and your documents, if they like you, they give you a job. If you can't do it anymore, bounce. Let the next person come in. So I think let's just aim to be good to one another. Let's be accountable to one another at every level we are at, as children, as students, as... in everything that we do, let's be honest. And then that's when you can actually demand for something good and get it. And then let's strive to, all of us in our daily lives, try to be examples to the youth, because children model what they see. And if you as a parent are looking at taking advantage of a client, for example, this is my next big deal, this could change my life, instead of attending to a person's circumstance, your child is not going to be a patriotic person. They're going to grow up to take advantage of Ugandans. That's the leadership we're going to have. So my call to all of us is to be honest, to be good models of leadership wherever we are, and not just in politics.
Thank you so much. It's always refreshing to talk to you, and having been at the Imara Girls Festival, it was so much energy to be with the women. And the mere fact that it's democracy, it's something that is passionate to my heart. You said I'm a friend to what? But ladies and gentlemen over there, we are the representation of our leaders. What you see our leaders do is what we are as a society. Your leader is a reflection of who you are. And you need to question yourself. Are you feeding the right information to your leader? Are you holding your leader accountable? Are you speaking truth to power? Or are you just, enabling power take over you and affect your vote? Please remember that democracy is for you. But we also have to internalize that capitalism and democracy, does it work for the women? Some of these questions are for you to, to ask and then decide. Because that's the beautiful thing about democracy. And therefore, next time you're going to vote, the roadmap is out. Look at the manifesto of your leader and what they gave you, and start ticking off. What did they say they would do? And also know the role of that leader. Is it a member of parliament? What is the role of a member of parliament? What is the role of an LC1 chairperson? What is the role of an opinion leader? What is the role of a technocrat? The budget process is starting. Please remember to go there and give your views. Please remember to look for your leaders and tell them to get into these consultation meetings, so that in the next financial year you can be able to review and say, this is what we asked for and it is here, and therefore monitor its implementation. I've been Turyatunga Rebecca Juna, and what does democracy mean to you?